I'm Jacob Shepard. I am the Executive Director for Access, Throughput, and Efficiency at our Hospital Operations Center.
And can you tell us what your team does? What does that mean?
Yeah, we have a pretty great team who focuses on how patients access Stanford Healthcare in the inpatient beds. So we have teams who are focused on transferring patients in, on allowing actually the life flight. Let me restart.
Can you also take your cord? It's around.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Let me restart that one. Yes, the question one more time.
What does your team do?
So my team here at Stanford focuses on patient flow. So it's how patients both access our system as well as how patients move through the system. We work with the transfer center, the life flight teams, the administrative nursing supervisors, bed control, and the hospital operations center. And as a tight group, we're not only the operations of how patients access and move through the system, but also the strategy and analytics around how we can make those improvements on a day-to-day basis.
That's why we picked you for this. Cool. So can you tell us how do you and your team help the hospital better understand what capacity is?
So there's several ways that we help the hospital understand capacity on a daily basis. We do have one of our dashboards here which shows that our capacity level today is at capacity level 2. This is a simple framework, it's a 5-tiered level, to show here's what's happening in Stanford today. Not the impact of one single department, but the impact of the system and how stretched we are. We have corresponding interventions that for each capacity level. And our goal, as you can see at the top there with capacity level 2, is to make sure that our beds are flowing, that there is access, that we're not backing up with our ED boarding, which is seen in the top left corner. And we're really trying to understand what's happening in real time, describing that in a very simple way, and then making sure that we have interventions that will automatically be activated, predetermined interventions, based on what the needs for the system are today with our capacity level.
This is a really cool dashboard. Who sees it and when do people see it?
Yeah, so this dashboard is available to all of our clinical staff in the hospital. We make it widely available. If you have Epic access, everyone has access to this. We do believe in being transparent. We want to make sure that folks have access to the information that they need and that we're all leveraging the same information in real time to guide our decision making. We do share this at some huddles throughout the day, especially on the higher capacity level days. The nursing supervisors, the HOC team, we live in this dashboard. This is what we're monitoring 24/7.
Let me put in a question here. And still look at Joy when you answer.
Great.
So Jake, why visualize things like this? Why take the time to build a dashboard, show visuals like this? I'm sure you put a lot of thought into what is visualized, what isn't. Can you share the power of visualization and numbers like this for your teams and for the hospital?
Yeah. One important aspect as we look at dashboards is making sure that we understand what each metric means and that there's shared knowledge for the entire team. So when the ED looks at this, we need to make sure that we're using common language with them. When the interventional platform, the same with inpatient nursing or other support services. So we've designed this specific dashboard to really capture some of those key top elements that those different teams look at each day. We then want to make sure that the most important metrics are easy to see, and also that there's some indicator that tells us when it's a problem. So for example, right now the ED boarders plus probable is showing 36. We have a red highlight around that. That tells us that there's something important to look at and to focus on for today. And so the teams right now are focused on how do we decrease our ED boarder number based on a preset threshold. Having the information easily available, that's meaningful, that allows us to change our actions today is what's really important. I got that one?
That was perfect.
Great. Let me get a drink here.
Just as an aside, we talked to EVS for their for part of the videos, and it was a day that the day that we went in to go record their huddle was capacity level 3 with high probability of it moving to a 4.
Excellent.
And so the conversations that they were having around were like around this and your meeting to be able to check and see, do they actually need to do that, and what do they need to do to prep?
Yeah.
What is all in there? So.
It's kind of fun because we started the capacity level system back in late 2022. And when we started the capacity level system, there was this shared understanding within different teams that everybody understood that there was work that was happening. No one could quantify what it was. And so you have a bad day on one day and a bad day on another day. Are they the same? Are they equal? Or is one actually worse, requiring more? And we didn't have that common framework. And so once we instituted the capacity level, we each now can sit there and say, this is what capacity level 2 means to me today. This is what capacity level 4 means to my workflow today. And here's what I need to do differently. And so it tailors to that specific team. It's fun. I love this.
So Jake, tell me this, and do this without pointing to the board, because I think in this part of the video they'll just want to see you talk, and you can look at Joy when you answer. What is I'm a new manager. I've been told I should visualize data for my team. What type of questions do you think a new manager should ask to develop the best visuals for their team? Or how do they even start?
For a new leader on a team trying to understand where do we start with data? What's important is there's a lot of data out there, but it needs to be usable information. It can't just be abstract data. It can't be data elements. So the best place to start, if you're on a data journey, the best place to start, sorry, I gotta reset because that distracted me.
Just start at the best place to start.
So the best place to start is to understand what are the metrics that are readily available. Here at Stanford Healthcare, we're very fortunate. There are many teams that will provide and have already provided predetermined metrics and data sets. And understanding as you partner with your leadership team and your peers, what are the important elements that they're tracking? So if you're on an inpatient unit, what your data needs are going to be more similar to your inpatient unit peers versus if you're in a clinical support service or if you're in an ambulatory setting. But understand what are others around you using. Understand what's on the operations plan for this fiscal year. There are key elements and goals that we're striving towards, and oftentimes those metrics are already available to understand how your unit is performing specifically to that operations plan goal.
Perfect. That was awesome. Thank you.
Try to hit all your
You're hitting it really well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This is a stretch for me.
No,
You're doing beautifully.
Yeah, I've already got a couple 30-second segments that were really good. Yeah. Did you have any other questions, Joy, or are we?
Are there different kinds of daily measures that you would want to that you and your team use that you would want to show us, or do you think this is good?
Daily measures. Excuse me. I'll just say a couple summary statements here. When you're looking at your team's data, as you're looking at your performance data, it's important to look not only at what's happening historically, what's been trending over time, but how does that compare to today? So as we look at our daily patient flow measures, we're saying what's happened today and how does that compare against what's normal? Is this on the high end of normal? Is this on the low end of normal? And if we're out of bounds for what's tolerated, what do we need to change to bring us back within that preferred performance? There's a better way to say that.
No, I think that was good. Do you have a visual to go with it? Like, do these... This page doesn't necessarily say...
I think this one's probably the better one for that. Yeah, let's talk about the aircraft one. I think that's going to be... Actually, no. This is not a good example day. Where's a good example day? Something where we had to pivot. It's always the ICU ones. Let's put the number in. talked about ED, so what if we do ED? As far as it wants to let me go. There it goes. Okay. Actually, give me a second, because it should be cleaner if I have this as a discrete. Discrete item like this. Well, tell me if this will work. So basically, this is ED boarding at midnight. Here's our average. We're up to 36 right now. So we're well out of bounds for what? Right? So there's different ways that we look at stuff in that way. That's not comparing midnight to midnight, though. I'm trying to think of how to give you a easy example that shows how we're comparing the trending versus normal based on what we have currently already talked about. So I'm not introducing a new thought.
I don't know if you need to do this, Jake.
Okay.
I think it's okay.
All right.
Yeah, if it's complicated, I mean, I think the story was good. No.
Well, you know what I could do is I have an example of a patient, and I've said this one publicly several times recently, so it's a good one to use. Of a patient we had who waited multiple days trying to come from Hawaii, was not able to come because of our capacity challenges. And what we're always questioning is, what do we need to do differently to make sure that we can get those patients? And that's really how we're leveraging some of these metrics. We have ICU denials from the transfer center. What do we need to do differently to bring that in? Like, I think there's a scenario there. Give me a second to think about how to weave this into your topic. Because the patient, this all has to come back to the patient lens. The whole reason we do this is for the patient, providing care.
So I think what you're hitting at is data is not just something we report
Correct.
or review. It can also be used to help us understand how to best meet the needs of our patients.
Yeah, trade seats, jump in the chair.
Right? I think that's what you're getting at.
Yeah, it is.
And
This
here's an
drives
example.
decision making.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's something like that. I think.
Well, and I think your capacity piece talks about how this drives decision making, and it helps people know which workflow
love
they should
that.
be doing.
Yeah.
And so,
They drive
like,
decision making.
Yeah.
and we can help make that point with what you've already said and with the
Okay.
EVS work.
So if I just jump off of the capacity level, we had a recent capacity level 3 days, multiple day delay trying to get a patient to come in. And what we're doing is we're trying to leverage and identify populations. Let's see, how do I want to say that? It was easier to play off what you were saying.
So data is not just used to report and review.
Yeah.
We can use data we review in our teams to better manage patient care. One example is, and then you can go into that example.
Perfect.
And you don't need to look at the screen on this. I think just
Yeah.
telling the story is fine.
Okay, look at Joy. All right. We use data to drive our decision making. We don't want to only allow the data to sit there and inform us about something. We want it to actually drive a change in behavior or a change in workflow today. So our goal is to make sure that we're understanding what's happening and changing our actions to promote the best patient care. For example, we have patients who come from Hawaii, come from international places, across the US even, and we want to make sure that we can bring those patients in a timely way. But that requires that we understand our capacity challenges, that we're following our standard work, and that we're pivoting to make sure that we can bring patients in the time that they need the care.
Perfect. That was gold. Love that.
I didn't get to the specific example, but I think that's better.
Okay.
That
was
captured the intent.
Early on, when you were talking about what your team does, one thing that you said was you use data to be able to improve, to make improvements. Can you tell us a story around that?
Okay, which ones are good for a recording? I have lots of stories, but they're not all. Okay, broad audience.
It is a broad audience.
Yeah. Repeat your question one more time.
I think one that I'm sure you've done many times is you've used data and visuals such as this to understand where we are more flexible for incoming patient demand and where we're not. And knowing where to flex can help us meet the need of that demand of patients. And you can share an example, like maybe you moved around an intermediate ICU or an AAU to be able to accommodate a day a week where demand was really high.
Or deciding to add in extra, what's our letter? The alternative care areas, ACAs.
Yeah.
So
I don't know, and what you're going to be careful with on this, Jake, is there's so many acronyms.
Yeah.
People aren't going to know, and so you're going to have to try to not use acronyms wherever you can.
It's that, and then there's also so much of this is tied in the regulatory landscape side.
Oh, that's true.
That's the hard part around this is what do I want to be.
When I worked in regulatory, we were always like, do we have a license to do this?
Okay. I know why I'm pausing, because yes, we have lots of examples, but
Kat, Lee, and I had many discussions.
I was not there.
In the morning, we were like, I don't know if we have a license to do this today.
But we're doing it anyways.
Yeah. I don't know. What's the thing that we haven't hit on yet, Joe? Because I think he's hit on some excellent stuff.
Can we switch gears?
Yes.
And one thing that we're asking a lot of people is around their leader standard work.
Yes.
So, I want to try to get different examples of how people how leaders are getting themselves and their teams ready for the day. How do you? So in terms of making sure that your department is running smoothly, that you are supporting your team, helping them develop, what does a day-to-day, walk us through a typical day of how you make that happen?
That's gonna be fun. In our patient flow world, a typical day can start as early as 4 a.m. The first pushes of our dashboard come out at 4 a.m., giving us indications of what are some of the problems, what is our capacity level for the day, and starts to drive the next steps. My team typically is on site by 6 a.m. And from there is an assessment of what's happening, what are the hot spots for today, and also the activation of our standard work based on our capacity level plan. From there, we start to have a tiered huddle structure, as many of the teams do. So within our leadership team, we have a tiered leadership structure, huddle structure. Also, we have a patient flow huddle structure. So at 8:15, we start with the first meeting. It's multidisciplinary. It's an open invite to say, what are the issues today that each team is facing? And what are we seeing that the information, leveraging our dashboards, what does that actually tell us that we need to be focusing on today? From there, if we're at a level 3, level 4 day, we will add additional huddles. And sometimes we go as late as 8 p.m. to make sure that our patient care needs are met and that every operational team is having their issues addressed. So every day can be a little different. Some days we're extending a little longer, but our goal is to make sure that we're leveraging the information that's being pushed to us, not data, information that's being pushed to us that we can use to drive our decision making and help achieve the optimum patient care for the day.
Beautiful. I think we can close on that. Are we good, Joy?
Sweet.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Let's go ahead and stop the recording. This one was really nice. I really liked that recording over there.